Nova First Flight by Rachel Farrell Fischer. Fade in. Exterior space, day. Earth is shimmering blue jewel among the stars, dark with golden streaks where the lights of mankind are visible from space. Interior, elementary classroom, day. The image of Earth fills the holographic blackboard at the front of the classroom. No windows or decorations to distract the students who sit at identical desks in perfect rows, all in the same uniform. Their teacher, Nathaniel Crow, 50s, a distinguished man, a prophet in his own mind, preaches to his students.
At the dawn of the 23rd century, humanity made the greatest leap in its history. Driven by dangerous overpopulation on Earth, they built colonies in space.
The blackboard zooms out, reveals tracks of blinking red lights that lead from Earth to the 20 huge satellite colonies. Cities inside glass bottles with docking spaces for hundreds of spaceships. Cut to exterior space continuous, the same space the students watch. 3 Earth fighters, sleek and painted like the night sky with a bright sun painted on their wings, patrol. Led by Aleksey's fighter, painted a metallic blood red.
Earth sent mass amounts of resources into space to feed and fuel the colonies, depleting her own resources as the colonies grew and flourished.
Interior, Aleksey's fighter, continuous. The cockpit is a delicate mix of steam gauges and digital screens. Aleksey Amhail, 30s, only her mismatched eyes are visible through her visor, glances at the overhead console. Pictures of her family are stuck around a big red button under a glass case in the center of the overhead console.
The brightest minds of a generation escaped Earth for the hope of the colonies. Eventually, Earth began to withhold resources, and in turn, the colonies restricted travel and their advances in technology.
The glass cockpit reveals the expanse of space outside in every direction. Aleksey watches the stars. She straightens. Something's coming. An alarm on her radar goes off. Exterior space continuous. A line of colonial fighters move in on the Earth fighters, boxy and a smoky gray, with a series of interconnected circles painted on their noses. Led by Benjamin's fighter, a darker gray with twin starbursts painted on the wings.
With no recourse left, 200 years after the first colony was built, Earth and the colonies went to war.
Interior, Benjamin's fighter continuous. It's a completely digital cockpit. The glass walls are overlaid with digital readouts that constantly update. An almost overwhelming amount of information for the pilot to process. Benjamin Thomas, 30s, the steely-eyed commander, keeps his gaze fixed on the Earth fighters. His eyes flick to a small digital calendar in the corner. The last day of the month is circled in red. Every day except the one prior, blacked out. 1 day left. He takes a deep breath, turns back to the battle.
Okay, steady on and everyone gets to go home.
Aleksey's fighter gleams blood red.
Take out the other 2 first, then we'll concentrate on the Nova fighter.
Exterior space continuous. The colonial fighters get closer and closer, and they're in range. With Earth and the colonies in the background, Benjamin's fighter opens fire, and the Earth fighters break in every direction. The Earth fighters are more maneuverable. They turn on a dime and slip across the battlefield like ghosts. The colonial fighters carry a heavier armament and fill the battlefield with one round after round. Aleksey's fighter decimates every colonial fighter in its path. Colonial fighters rush to intercept her, but she's always a move ahead. She shoots the 2 down, dodges a missile at the last second, and dives towards another. The colonial fighters overwhelm the other 2 Earth fighters and destroy them. Aleksey rolls out of the way of a missile, fires. Her rockets blow away a colonial fighter. She destroys 2 more, comes around. Benjamin is there. They tear across the field, battle for the upper hand. Benjamin fires, clips Aleksey in the wing. He fires again, riddles her with twin stabilizers with bullet holes. It looks like the end for Aleksey. Her engines flare. She flips around, fires, blows away Benjamin's left wing and engine. Benjamin's fighter spirals out of control toward the colonies. Aleksey's fighter tumbles over and over towards Earth. She hits the atmosphere. The heat makes her glow. Her engines flare. She straightens out and falls towards Earth. Aleksey's fighter descends through the clouds. Smoke from her engine leaves a trail. Below her is the ocean. Beyond that, the North American continent. Her engines explode. She plunges towards the water. Flaps on the wings extend. A Hail Mary. The fighter starts to level off as it falls. It's not enough, and it's going to hit. The cockpit cover explodes free. Aleksey ejects. Her fighter breaks apart as it impacts the water. The pieces sink out of sight as Aleksey floats down. Exterior space continuous. Benjamin's fighter drifts. Its last engine sputters, burns out with a pathetic whine. Interior, Benjamin's fighter continuous. Benjamin activates his emergency distress beacon. He looks out at the stars, at the colonies in the distance. A timer on his console counts the minutes of oxygen he has left. 87 minutes. The seconds tick down. He looks at the calendar, taps on the day prior to the last day of the month. It blacks out. His last day. Interior, Earth Military Hospital, ER, night. Medical staff watch the doors, ready. They know something's coming. The doctor is on the phone, takes notes as he nods along.
Got it. We'll be ready for her.
He hangs up, turns to his nursing staff.
Clear out radiology, x-rays first, get OR1 ready, and get me 200 milligrams of morphine.
His staff share a concerned look. The doors fly open. Paramedics wheel Aleksey in on a gurney. She has an oxygen mask over her face. Her suit is torn. She bleeds from multiple wounds. Delirious with pain, she refuses to cry. The paramedics hand off to the doctor and his staff. The doctor leans over Aleksey, flashes a pen light in her eyes. A nurse gasps. Her pupils dilate widely. The blood vessels in her eyes have all burst.
Oh my god.
Ignore it for now. It happens with Nova pilots.
A second nurse pushes through. A loaded syringe in her hand, she injects the morphine into the IV in Aleksey's arm. Aleksey stares up at the ceiling as they work. Her eyes slowly drift shut.
Get a crash cart.
Interior Colonial Battleship flight deck night. It's highly organized, neat, everything labeled. It's all digital, sterile, futuristic, nothing personal. There's no paper or wood in sight. Colonial soldiers in gray uniforms watch as a tether slowly pulls Benjamin's fighter closer. A crew chief uses a handheld controller to work the pulley, slows it as Benjamin's fighter approaches.
Almost there.
A medic hovers at his shoulder. Further back, a medical team waits by a gurney.
How long has he been out there?
Hour and a half. Oxygen ran out 73 seconds ago.
Bring him in faster.
The crew chief huffs.
If I bring him in too fast, we might miss. Or he could swing, hit the ship, and bounce off.
Hint taken, the medic steps back. Benjamin's fighter is only feet from the deck. The crew chief turns off the pulley. The fighter floats closer, close enough to see Benjamin inside, motionless. Two crew members in spacesuits reach out and grab the fighter. They guide it onto the flight deck. It lands with a thud. The flight deck doors close. Crew members pry off the cockpit. The medical team pulls Benjamin out, carefully removes his helmet. Benjamin is unconscious. They haul him onto the gurney.
Get oxygen on him.
They cut open his flight suit, stick the defib patches on his chest, shock him. His body jumps. Nothing. Chest compressions, oxygen. They shock him.
Come on.
Crew members clear the wreckage of Benjamin's fighter away as the medical team tries to revive him. Interior, Colonial Hospital, day. The sleek, utilitarian hospital room is devoid of any flair. Advanced medical equipment is built into the wall. There are no windows. A vase of pretty fake flowers sit next to the fold-out bed. Super. 6 weeks later. Benjamin, sore but determined to leave, slowly gets dressed. General Rockaway, 50s, a grizzled, lifelong soldier, watches with a frown.
The doctor has thrown a fit.
I signed the release.
1 more week would...
No. I almost died on my last day. I'm not taking that chance again.
Rockaway sighs. They've had this argument before.
I signed off on your retirement papers. 10 years and one hell of a career to walk away from, Star Killer.
Rockaway holds out a holographic sheet. Benjamin takes it, stares reverently at the certificate.
You've defeated a Nova pilot one-on-one, Ben. That's never been done before.
I lost.
Benjamin glances around the room. He has nothing to take with him but the certificate. He heads for the door.
This war has been going on since before I was born, and it will last till long after I'm gone. Won't notice I'm not fighting anymore.
Not a lot of men can walk away from a fight.
Benjamin pauses in the doorway. He looks down at his hand. A tremor makes it shake, and he clenches his fist.
I'm not walking away from the fight. I'm walking away from the war.
Rockaway watches him go, torn between pride and disappointment. Exterior, Colony Delta, continuous. Benjamin leaves the hospital, steps out into the colony. It's a picture-perfect city of the future. The steel and glass buildings in the business district visible past the residential neighborhood. Perfectly trimmed fake trees. No dirt, no wood, no paper. People wear elegant, stylish clothing in solid, muted colors. All jewelry is some kind of metal. The streets would barely fit one car at a time, not that there are any. There's no vehicles larger than two-person scooters. Most people walk, some bike. Benjamin tries to hide his limp as he walks away. Interior, Adelaide, day. This civilian freighter is towards the end of its long haul, packed to the gills with crates and boxes of cargo. Its crew beyond ready to be home. Mia, late 20s, on her first trip as a first officer, but doing well, reads a report on a holo screen as her pilot, who has a bio-interface chip on his temple, and navigator argue over plans for home.
Bar first.
No way, a spa. Massage.
Mia shakes her head, amused. The captain, Dave, 40s, an experienced shipman who's been doing this for far too long, steps onto the deck. He has a sealed diplomatic pouch tucked under his arm and a bio-interface chip on his temple. He takes the chair next to Mia, briefly rests a hand on her thigh. They share an intimate smile.
Anything?
Quiet so far.
Dave nods to their pilot and navigator.
And the great debate, are we visiting a bar or a spa first?
No resolution yet.
How far from Colony Delta are we?
The pilot and navigator are so into their argument they've forgotten to do their jobs.
12 and 16.
Dave nods, distracted. Mia studies him, eyes the pouch that he keeps close.
Are you ever going to tell me what that is?
Dave's smile is brittle.
You're happy you're not knowing.
Mia frowns, ready to push. The radar pings. Everyone stops, turns.
Looks like a ship. No movement.
They stopped out here?
They're suicidal floating dead in the belt. They won't be able to start up in time to dodge if any of those asteroids shift.
They peer at the large screen showing the space outside and try to spot the ship. Thousands of asteroids spread out on all sides.
Is there a beacon?
Navigator checks.
No broadcast of anything.
Mia leans forward, searching.
Wait, I see it. There, at the one, in the shadows.
Close in on the window, in the shadow of a huge asteroid, barely visible, is a large, clunky old mining ship, the Argo.
What kind of ship is that?
It's an old mining ship. They decommissioned that model over a decade ago.
They move closer. Everyone shifts to keep the ship in sight.
What's her stamp?
I don't see it.
The Argo disappears behind a small asteroid.
Mark our location.
The navigator marks their location on a map. They sail past the small asteroid. The Argo returns to view. It's closer now. They can clearly see what's left of a huge drill attached to the hull, next to 4 new cannons that are obviously not meant for this kind of ship.
Are those weapons?
Bring up the shield.
The pilot immediately pushes a large yellow button on his console.
Should we wake everyone?
Is it still dead?
The navigator nods. Dave considers.
Let them sleep.
The crew watches as they pass by the Argo. It slowly disappears from view behind the large asteroid. Everyone lets out a breath of relief. Dave checks that the diplomatic pouch is still tucked next to him.
Should we call the port?
No point in putting it out over the wave.
I can ask my brother.
If anyone can identify it, he can.
Interior, Benjamin's apartment, day. A sleek bachelor pad, the home of a professional who, until recently, was gone more than he was home. A few scattered pictures of Benjamin show his life before this, almost always in a spotless gray military uniform. Clean-shaven, hair perfect, the best pilot and the perfect soldier. Now he's got a 5 o'clock shadow and his hair is a mess. He's trying to figure out what to do with his life as he unpacks frozen groceries from a plastic crate. The vidcom on the wall comes alive. Mia appears. Benjamin rushes to answer. The siblings light up at the sight of one another.
M&M.
There's laughter from behind Mia. She scowls.
Do not call me that at work, Jam.
Like a good brother, he ignores her complaint.
And how is your trip?
Good. We should be home in 12 hours.
Oh, being in charge, getting old?
I'd like to go back to being unimportant and invisible now.
Not a chance.
Mia rolls her eyes.
We saw a ship in the belt.
A floater? They used to leave them out there, free salvage to anyone who found them. What stamp was it carrying?
It didn't have one, and it had weapons.
That stops Benjamin.
It's not legal to operate without a stamp. What kind of weapons?
Cannons. 4 of them and no power rating.
It could be an old colonial. I think they experimented with converting ships earlier in the war. But it should still have a stamp.
Can you look into it?
I'll ask around.
I have to go. Love to you.
You as well. Be safe.
Mia waves as the vid screen goes black. Interior, Earth Military Hospital, day. The hospital room overlooks the ocean, full of fresh flowers and get-well balloons. Aleksey, her bruises just beginning to fade, sits on the edge of her bed and waits impatiently as the doctor looks over her latest x-ray. He speaks to Colonel Noah brightly, early 50s, the epitome of the exemplary military officer. He has a small blue pin above his nameplate.
It looks like everything is healing nicely.
Aleksey glances out the window at her freedom.
Any permanent damage?
The doctor nervously consults his notes.
No, she should be fully mission capable in a few months.
Aleksey turns to the doctor, eyes narrowed.
How long until I can get back to the line?
Interior car, day. Aleksey stares out the window, watches the buildings and people pass by without seeing them. Noah drives the electric car and glances at Aleksey out of the corner of his eye.
They shot down Amendment 36 again while you were out.
Which one's that?
Non-human operation of vehicles.
He takes his hands off the wheel, lets the car drift.
Claimed a machine can't be held responsible for human life.
The colonies use drone-operated transports.
They approach a red traffic light. Noah slows down.
Don't bother.
Noah speeds back up. Just as they reach the light, it turns green.
And they used reasoning systems to manage their oxygen engines, both of which are now illegal.
What do they care? They don't recognize our laws anyway.
The buildings give way to farmland.
Are you sure you're ready to go back?
Aleksey smiles. Exterior, Amhail Ranch, day. Fields of golden wheat surround the sprawling ranch. Horses graze in a large corral, cattle in the fields. The house sits in the center of it all, a large vegetable and fruit garden to one side, a barn and farm equipment on the other. In the distance, the Pacific Ocean. On the shoreline is a clover-shaped launch site where a shuttle prepares to launch. A road winds through the ranch land and wheat fields, up to a small overlook. Aleksey sits in the grass next to the road with her dog Buster. Always the soldier, she sits with her back straight, completely aware of her surrounding, as she's enraptured by the shuttle. Boom! The shuttle engines ignite. It lifts off and disappears into the clouds. Aleksey leans back, tilts her face to the sun. Interior, Amhail Ranch house, evening. A fire crackles in the hearth of the eclectically decorated ranch home. The news plays on the TV mounted on the wall, footage of military ships at a standoff in space. Aleksey curls up in a chair, ice pack on her shoulder, Buster at her feet. On the couch, her Aunt Cass, early 50s, a cheerful, vibrant woman, and Uncle Randall, 50s, a stoic man with a prosthetic arm, cuddle.
Did you talk to Abigail?
Yeah. She said the travel ban to the colonies has been lifted. They made the ceasefire official at 8 this morning. Dad was on the negotiating team.
Pretty impressive after that mess at Gibraltar.
Aleksey stretches, winces.
I still have bruises from that fight. It's gonna suck being stuck on a shuttle all day tomorrow.
Close in on the news report, diplomats from opposing sides as they arrive at a government building. Protesters line the streets. Angry chants drown out the newscaster.
You won't get in till late.
Have you told them you're coming?
No. We'll only be docked there a couple of days.
Interior, Aleksey's room, morning. Pictures of exotic places on Earth cover the walls. Books about aerodynamics, space travel, and history stacked on every surface. A dog bed lays at the foot of the bed next to a packed military duffel bag. On the windowsill is a children's book about a little plane next to a handmade model of an old military fighter jet. Buster watches faithfully as Aleksey carefully picks up her dog tags, fastens them around her neck. She gets dressed in relaxed, rugged civilian clothes, the style of Earth. She pulls on a red leather jacket with the United Nations of Earth military logo on the shoulder. She scratches Buster's ears and picks up her duffel. Interior, Argo, day. The interior of the old mining ship has been shoddily upgraded with weapons and defensive systems it was never meant to carry. It's been turned into a floating arsenal. It's a civilian crew, rebels to some, terrorists to others. They have biointerface chips on their temples that help them interact with the ship. They watch, tense as the Adelaide sails by, the stamp of her name across her hull clearly visible.
The scan is over.
Axel Charleston, 30s, arrogant, handsome, and skilled with an ego to match. He's not bothered that they might have been spotted. He's sprawled back in a chair with his feet up on a console. Pat Robinson, 50s, a regal, vicious career soldier, sits in the command chair. She rules the Argo with an iron fist. Hanging behind the command chair is a painting of Nathaniel Crowe in the style of a presidential portrait.
Nothing over the open wave. They didn't see us.
Is it the Adelaide?
The stand matches and they are on schedule. They'll be out of range soon.
She turns to Axel. He smirks, rolls to his feet. Interior, Argo flight deck, day. Gear and equipment is stacked randomly along the flight deck. It's all outdated colonial military equipment or civilian equipment that's been modified. It's much laxer than the colonial flight deck. The crew members wear modified one-piece flight suits. Everyone has a pin in the shape of the initials PLF somewhere on their top. Axel leads 4 pilots to a line of PLF fighters, unmarked, haphazardly upgraded colonial fighters, a couple models older than the current colonial model. Axel's fighter has a jagged streak of lightning painted along the wings. He activates his biointerface with a tap as he climbs into his fighter. They climb into their fighters. The flight deck doors slide open. Painted above them is, "For the future, we destroy the past." Interior civilian shuttle day. It's a crowded civilian transport, an airliner for space, filled to the brim with travelers, most dressed in the sterile, sophisticated style of the colonies. Many, but not all, have biointerface chips on their temples. A few are dressed in the rough, outdoorsy style of Earth. The 2 groups don't interact outside of what's absolutely necessary. It's blue collar versus white collar. Aleksey sits towards the back and stares out the window at the stars. In the seat in front of her is a little girl. They play a game. Every time the little girl tries to sneak a peek at her, Aleksey catches her, winks, and the little girl ducks behind her seat. It continues until the little girl's mother notices, glances back at Aleksey and the logo on her shoulder. She pulls the little girl back to her seat.
Don't talk to Spacey.
She says it like it's a dirty thing. Aleksey's face falls. She quickly schools it into a blank mask, turns back to the window. As soon as her mother isn't looking, the little girl steals a look at Aleksey, but Aleksey doesn't look back. Disappointed, the little girl returns to her seat. Close in on the window, the Adelaide passes by just inside the asteroid belt. Interior Adelaide, day. Mia, Dave, and the crew watch the shuttle pass by.
We have you in sight, Adelaide.
We're headed down the belt road, so we should be well out of your way.
Good, copy. We are bound for Colony Delta. Safe travels.
You as well.
The shuttle moves out of sight. The crew relaxes.
I don't know who thought putting a road through an asteroid belt was a good idea.
Yeah, the same person who thought putting a travel lane right next to one was.
Someone who never had to use either one.
The radar pings.
Asteroid?
In the belt?
She's teasing him. Dave shoots her a fond look. Mia winks. The radar pings again.
Something is moving towards us.
Dave and Mia straighten, turn serious.
Did an asteroid break up?
They look to the window.
There are 5 signatures. Wait, they changed direction.
Axel's fighter comes into view, flies past them. Dave's hand tightens around the diplomatic pouch. Axel's fighter turns on its wing, whips around, and heads straight for the Adelaide.
That is not a colonial fast mover.
A comm system beeps.
They're hailing us.
Interior, Colony Delta Port, day. A wave of travelers disembark, disperse into the crowded terminal. Dozens of screens display destinations and gate changes. It's like Atlanta International on steroids. Aleksey strides through the port, pulls her baseball cap down, and ignores the stares and whispers.
Is she from Earth?
Look at her clothes.
Aleksey breezes past them. A protester, waving hollow screen flyers, shoves one at Aleksey.
Answer the call and protect the colonies.
Aleksey sidesteps but catches the flyer on reflex.
We have to protect the future. Join the People's Liberation Front.
Aleksey steps away. The protester follows. Aleksey shoves the flyer in her pocket as a peace offering and keeps walking. She stops in front of a huge screen playing a news report. Close in on the news report, footage of a severely damaged Earth battleship with a British flag stamped on the side. Another Earth battleship with an American flag stamped on the side works to repair the damage.
Both sides have condemned the attack, which came after Earth representatives again refused to increase the amount of perishable goods allocated to the colonies.
The footage cuts to a memorial ceremony, a stage set up in front of a statue of a revered colonial general. President Maralee Hammond, female, early 50s, an elegant professional politician, gives a speech.
As Earth and the colonies both announced the official signing of the ceasefire, ceremonies across the colonies honored the fallen, chief among them, General Alexander Dante.
Maralee makes a show of shaking hands with Maximilian Dante, early 30s, in a gray uniform that almost seems too big for him. A nice guy. You can't hide how uncomfortable or sad he is.
He was famously killed 3 years ago by Spacey's legendary fighter corps Nova, after leaving his command to fight alongside his men. His son was on hand for the ceremony on Colony Delta with President Hammond.
Aleksey!
Aleksey jolts, turns from the news to see Torque Gear, 30s, her closest friend and fellow soldier. He has a smear of engine grease under one ear and hasn't shaved in a week. He wears the same red leather jacket as Aleksey and sweeps her off her feet in a hug. Several onlookers frown and shake their heads. In the colonies, it's not an appropriate display in public. Interior Benjamin's apartment, day. A worried Benjamin stares at the vidcom as the call tries to connect. The call drops.
Redial.
The call goes out, tries to connect.
Come on, Rita.
The call drops. Benjamin punches the wall in frustration. He winces, examines his hand. The tremor is still there. Interior, Colony Delta President's office, day. Maralee sighs and hangs up her coat. She's exhausted from the ceremony and gratefully takes a seat behind her sleek steel desk. She picks up her biointerface chip and places it on her temple as Aide Liv Montfort, 30s, a chic, ambitious professional woman, rushes in, carrying a tablet.
Give me a minute, Liv.
I would, ma'am, but General Rockaway is on his way up.
Maralee smiles at that, notices the tablet.
And you have a message from the Spacey vessel docked at the port.
What is it?
Commander Colonel Brightly stressed that they are here in an advisory capacity and more than happy to help out should we need assistance with anything.
Maralee rolls her eyes, holds her hand out.
How kind of them. What's that?
A report from the port. A vessel missed call in. It was flagged because it was supposedly carrying diplomatic cargo.
Maralee holds out her hand and Liv obediently hands her the tablet. Maralee immediately starts to read.
Send him in when he gets here.
Liv nods and backs out, begins to pull the doors closed. Rockaway sweeps in, blows past Liv and shuts the door in her outraged face.
Hey, stay.
Maralee snorts indelicately, engrossed in the report.
What's wrong, Maralee?
The port just sent this over.
She hands him the tablet. He leans against her desk as he reads.
Crew of 18, 30,000 pounds of cargo.
Missed calling?
Do you think it was Spacey trying to end the ceasefire?
They wouldn't waste their time. Besides, they may have just lost comms. Have you told Holmes?
Not yet. I know what he'll say. Play nice with Earth. Do not, under any circumstance, endanger the ceasefire. He's preparing to call another assembly next month to discuss the next steps.
Maralee shakes her head in disgust. Rockaway watches her over the tablet.
I thought they would have given up by now.
Only fools think Earth would ever surrender.
Maralee shoots him an annoyed look.
They've already lost. Their population has been devastated by the war.
Rockaway,
Their population was devastated before the war. Besides, there are only 3 agricultural colonies capable of mass production. We make just enough. The minute our population swells or one of those crops fails.
Maralee narrows her eyes in mock outrage. Rockaway gives her a boyish grin and Maralee breaks into a smile. Rockaway turns back to the report, stops.
The Adelaide?
Maralee nods. Rockaway frowns.
Are you okay?
I can have Thomas investigate.
Maralee sits up in surprise.
I thought he retired.
He did. The Adelaide is his sister's vessel.
Maralee reaches out, rests her hand on his arm.
The media will love to hear he's back.
Leave him alone, Maralee.
Rockaway's tone brokers no argument. He stands, heads for the door. Maralee straightens, serious.
Have him work with Spacey. It'll make it easier to keep an eye on them.
Interior Benjamin's apartment, day. Benjamin scrolls through a report on old mining ships and their stamps on a holoscreen. He's not happy. A knock on the door. Benjamin answers, steps aside to let Rockaway in.
Any news?
Nothing yet.
Rockaway studies him as he closes the door.
Have you been sleeping?
Benjamin ignores the question, crosses the kitchen to the fridge.
Drink?
A cold brew if you have it.
Benjamin grabs 2 from the fridge, hands Rockaway 1. They open the beers, knock glasses, and drink. Benjamin slides him the hollow screen. Rockaway picks it up, reads as he sips his beer.
Class 4 mining vessels, legal upgrades and stamps, 2560 through 2570.
He looks at Benjamin.
Mia's crew spotted Class 4 with mounted external cannons in the belt. No stamp, no power signature.
Rockaway instantly turns serious.
A floater, one of the old experiments.
Benjamin gestures to the report.
I checked. We never used that model. The hull couldn't support the mounts.
Maybe they got the model wrong.
Dave's been operating mining ships for 3 decades, and Mia specializes in
Cargo and industrial vessels, I remember. The president's office has ordered an investigation. I told her you would lead it.
Benjamin stiffens.
The quickest way to find Mia and make sure she is okay is to take this investigation. Spacey is going to assist.
Benjamin sneers. The tremor in his hand appears. He shakes it out.
What's their interest?
I would imagine it is the diplomatic cargo the Adelaide was carrying.
Benjamin stares at him in shock.
What?
It was supposed to be handed off to someone at the port. Maralee was not aware of it until the report came in.
But wouldn't it have to go through her?
It wasn't registered in the normal channels. It was meant to bypass all officials and go straight to Earth. Can you imagine what would happen if someone were to sell our greatest secrets to Earth? The RS system? Our biointerface technology?
Interior hallway day. Aleksey and Torque make their way down a long hallway. They pass several sets of blast doors. Digital screens above them display the name of the ship on the other side.
How's your shoulder?
Fine. Going stir crazy not being able to fly.
Don't know if you're going to get much of an opportunity here. They've got us locked down. Won't even let us in the colony without an escort.
Fine with me. But the less I have to be out there, the better.
And they're making a big deal about maintaining the ceasefire.
They did the same thing with the last one, but it only lasted a month.
They only reached negotiations during the 5th ceasefire, and it only lasted a month. There's already teams working on import and export deals, lines of responsibility, and all that jazz.
They stop at the last set of blast doors. The digital screen reads, Enola Gay III. Torque swipes his access card. The doors slide open, reveal a second hallway much shorter than the first. At the end of a heavier set of blast doors, they walk across and Torque bangs on it with his fist.
Any problems?
Just the usual when everyone's stuck together in a floating metal box.
Aleksey chuckles. The doors lock open with a thunk. A young soldier, Wright, sticks his head around, grins when he sees them.
Welcome back, Colonel.
Interior, Enola Gay 3 flight deck continuous. Aleksey and Torque step onto the flight deck. They both grin at the sight of dozens of Earth fighters lined up and ready to launch. More, including Aleksey's fighter, are mounted on the walls. Soldiers in dark blue combat uniforms go about their duties. A professional full-time army, on average younger than the Colonials or the PLF. No one has a bio-interface chip. Everything has its place and little personal touches, a guitar, a football, posters and pictures and good luck charms that give a little insight into the soldiers that call the ship home. There is a level of activity and underlying violence that is absent in the Colonial and PLF flight decks. Everyone carries a sidearm. Rifles are stored in groups around the deck. There's always a weapon within reach. Aleksey and Torque cross the deck, stop in front of her fighter.
She looks good.
Finished the test flights yesterday. She just needs a final ride with you and I can sign her off.
Flair, late 20s, a bubbly, outgoing, and way too energetic female mechanic, bounces over and wraps Aleksey in a hug.
You're back!
Flair takes to Aleksey's duffel.
Give it up. Barrett Lee wants to see you. I'll put it in your bunk.
Aleksey groans, lets her have it. Interior, Brightly's office, day. Noah is seated at his oak desk. He scans a hollow screen report as Aleksey walks in. Close in on the report. It's a medical report on Aleksey. Symptoms: insomnia, occasional hallucinations. Diagnosis: survivor's guilt, possible PTSD. Expected burnout in years: 10 years in service, 9.5. Noah closes the report, locks the screen in a drawer, and waves Aleksey to a chair.
Welcome back.
Feels like it took forever.
Intel talk to you?
Before I left, you can relax. I'm not planning on seeing Mom, Dad, or Abigail while I'm here.
I'm sure Intel was upset to hear that.
Aleksey snorts.
They tried to be very polite about it, left off by reminding me I have to report any conversations I have with them, word for word.
When was the last time you saw them?
We talk every other week, but I haven't seen them in person in 2-3 years, right after Genesis.
Genesis was 4 years ago.
Aleksey shifts, guilty.
Shit. 4?
Noah nods, somehow exasperated and amused.
I'm going to give you a piece of personal advice.
Is it optional?
Make time for your family while you can, Aleksey. even if it's hard.
Aleksey shifts, uncomfortable admitting her feelings.
What's your professional advice?
If the ceasefire fails, never talk to or see them again. There's already vultures circling. They want you behind bars for communicating with the enemy.
Aleksey bristles.
I know. In the meantime, I've got something for you. A civilian freighter misfits call-in.
Since when are we allowed to get involved in the shipping lanes?
Since they were carrying cargo meant for Earth. A diplomatic pouch. I don't know what was in it, but I have been assured that if whatever it is falls into the hands of the colonies, it would be disastrous for Earth.
Interior, Colony Delta Port, day. Aleksey strides through the port. She heads down a hallway, takes the first left down another hallway, and hits a dead end. She turns around with a growl and heads back to the first hallway. She tries the first right. Interior, port conference room, day. Benjamin, in civilian clothes, stands in the empty conference room and stares out the window at the ships currently docked at the port. At the very end is the Enola Gay, an American flag stamped on the side. Bands of red tape stretch across her cannons. Benjamin checks his watch as Liv sweeps in. He perks up, hopeful. She casts a derisive eye over his clothing, drops a hollow screen on the table.
Where's the Earth Forces representative?
Benjamin deflates, turns to sarcasm to hide the hurt.
Hello, Liv. It's been a while. You look good.
She's icy.
It's Aide Montfort or ma'am at work. You look like you walked off a street. On Earth.
Benjamin turns away, back to the window. Liv softens, just a fraction.
Have you heard from Mia yet?
No.
The door opens. Aleksey steps inside. Benjamin turns. Their eyes meet. There's a spark of something, challenge and interest. The first meeting of two apex predators. They eye one another, trying to judge everything from just one look. Liv, completely forgotten by both, clears her throat.
Excuse me, you're late?
No, I'm not.
Liv bristles.
I'm President Hammond's Chief of Staff. This is Captain Benjamin Thomas of the Colonial Army.
Colonel Amhail, United Nations of Earth.
Aleksey smiles with her teeth. Benjamin returns it.
I'll be leading the investigation.
I'll be doing all the work.
Benjamin gives her a cool once-over.
I wouldn't expect anything else from a low mind. All impulse, no control.
Aleksey smirks.
So says the hive mind. I'm sorry. Remind me. Don't you need permission before you think?
They're having fun sparring. Liv is not. She pushes her way back into the conversation.
I will be in charge. You will report all progress to me and I will make all decisions on how to proceed.
That's not how we handle investigations.
This is a colonial investigation, not spacey. The colonial government has final authority.
Aleksey breaks in.
Then do it yourself.
Liv sputters. Aleksey turns to leave, heads for the door. Benjamin grabs Aleksey's arm. She turns on him with a snarl, but stops. He's looking at Liv.
I have orders to report to Rockaway, Liv.
She's outraged at his use of her first name.
It's a military matter. If you want direct control, have the port conduct the investigation.
Liv realizes he won't back down. She storms towards the door, pauses so Benjamin can stop her. He doesn't.
You will be hearing from my office and I expect daily updates.
The door slides shut behind her. Benjamin releases Aleksey's arm, steps away to regroup.
Friend of yours?
He ignores the question.
Is it just you?
For now. I can pull others if we need them.
Benjamin picks up the holoscreen.
We may not. I have permission to ping the beacon.
Benjamin slides the door open for her. Aleksey eyes him.
That's kind of a big deal for a ship that just missed a call-in.
It comes out sharp.
We take the lives of the crew very seriously.
Aleksey is taken aback by his tone, waves him forward. Benjamin doesn't move, holds the door open awkwardly.
Oh, right. So proper up here. Gonna walk 2 steps behind me?
Aleksey sneers, strides through the door.
Yes, ma'am.
Benjamin follows her out, 2 steps behind. Interior, Colony Delta Port Control Center, day. Benjamin escorts Aleksey into the control center of the port with a hand hovering over her lower back, but he doesn't physically touch her. The airtight door seals behind them. The walls of the office are made of huge screens, constantly updating maps of ship locations throughout the port's area of responsibility. There are hundreds of blips of different colors representing the ships. Aleksey eyes the door over her shoulder.
It's for emergencies. So when attacks the port, this room will seal and only the manager can communicate with vessels.
How do you get it open again?
That's need to know only.
What if I need to open it?
Benjamin's look clearly states how little of a chance there is of that.
Anything's possible.
Well, by that argument, you should show me how to fly one of your fighters.
Never.
They're both reluctantly amused by the impasse.
This way.
Benjamin gestures to the only person in the room, the manager, an elegant man with glasses and a tablet in his hands. He looks up as they walk over.
Good day. You must be the investigator. The president's office said to expect you.
Captain Thomas, Colonial Army.
They nod politely to one another. The manager glances at Aleksey.
Colonel Amhail, United Nations of Earth.
Aleksey extends her hand. The manager nods, very polite, but doesn't move to take her hand. Aleksey pulls her hand back.
Right. Sorry, I forgot.
It is acceptable, Colonel. I would not expect an outsider to know our customs.
Aleksey's about to make a sarcastic remark. Benjamin jumps in.
We have the vessel name and stamp number.
Of course.
Adelaide, 663-2679.
The manager taps on his tablet. One of the walls shifts, zooms in on an area inside the asteroid belt. It's not far from the symbol representing Colony Delta. There is no blip.
I'm not showing an active beacon for that vessel.
Benjamin's worry becomes obvious.
Are you sure?
Aleksey glances at him. The manager isn't happy to be questioned.
I could check again.
He clearly thinks it would be pointless, but Benjamin is past being polite.
Check again.
The manager taps on his tablet. The wall adjusts, zooms back in on the same spot. He looks at Benjamin, unsurprised. Aleksey watches Benjamin as he stares at the blank space, notices that his fists are clenched so tight his knuckles are white.
What does that mean?
Takes him a second for the manager to notice she's talking to him.
Excuse me?
No beacon. Is it destroyed?
Benjamin flinches.
Out of range? Off? What?
The manager frowns. He doesn't like her attitude.
There are dozens of reasons, Colonel. You would have to talk to the ship's captain to know for sure.
So, it could just be maintenance. Can you see the last time it was active?
The manager doesn't move, stares at her blandly.
I'm afraid you do not have the authorization to make that request.
If there was ever a tone that brokered no argument.
Find out the last time it was active.
He surprises both. Aleksey, reluctantly impressed, eyes Benjamin as the manager angrily taps on his tablet.
It was last active yesterday at 14:37.
Benjamin turns on his heel and leaves. Aleksey and the manager watch him, surprised.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Aleksey glances at him.
No thanks. You've been great.
It's brazenly sarcastic. She heads after Benjamin. Interior, Colony Delta Port day. Benjamin storms into the main area of the port, turns and heads through the swollen crowd of passengers. Aleksey follows, a few steps behind. She loses him in the crowd. She stops, concentrates like she's reaching out with her mind to find him. She turns, walks like she knows where she's going. She spots a food stall and slows down, distracted. She steps in line, digs out her wallet.
Whatever's fresh.
The food stall operator hands her a plastic container. Aleksey hands her a bill, but the food stall operator shakes her head.
I'm sorry, we only take credit.
Before Aleksey can react, Benjamin appears at her shoulder and hands the food stall operator a card. She swipes it quickly and hands it back.
Thank you.
Aleksey shovels food in her mouth as Benjamin pulls her away from the crowd.
I was going to let you stomp around for a minute.
Benjamin's entire body goes stiff.
I'm under control.
Before Aleksey can respond,
Aleksey?
Aleksey freezes. Terror flashes across her face. Benjamin stops. The instinct to protect rises, and he steps between Aleksey and the woman.
Lexi!
Aleksey steels herself and turns, faces her sister. Her sister is Abigail, 30s, sleek, aristocratic, the epitome of a colonial girl. Benjamin looks back and forth between them, the resemblance too obvious to ignore.
Abigail.
For a second, the two sisters just stare at one another. Aleksey throws herself at Abigail and they hug. Aleksey wraps her arms around her sister and holds on tight. Benjamin looks away awkwardly. Abigail remembers herself and pulls away suddenly, straightens her clothes. Aleksey blinks, off balance.
What are you doing here? I thought you were not coming home until Christmas. How long are you on the colony? Can you stay longer?
Abigail reaches out, straightens Aleksey's jacket. She notices Benjamin.
Who are you?
Benjamin starts to respond. Aleksey steps to his side, discreetly elbows him.
I came up to help Torque with a job. This is Ben.
Abigail looks between them, doubtful. She eyes Benjamin's clothes and hair. Recognition sparks.
You're Captain Thomas, Max's old commander. We met at the anniversary celebration last year.
Benjamin tries to remember, but it's not coming to him.
Nice to meet you again.
You as well. You are going to visit Mother and Father while you're here, right? We're having family dinner tomorrow night.
Aleksey's torn. She hesitates.
You can bring Torque and Ben.
I don't think.
Abigail turns to Benjamin.
You'll join us for dinner?
He'd really rather not, but he's too polite to refuse.
Of course. Thank you for the invitation.
Abigail beams. Aleksey steps on Benjamin's foot hard. He catches the pained grunt before it gets out.
They're going to be so happy to see you, Lexi.
Aleksey sighs, resigned but happy.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Tomorrow, around 6.
I'll be there.
Abigail glances at Benjamin. Aleksey grits her teeth.
We'll be there.
Wonderful.
Abigail impulsively hugs Aleksey, quickly steps away. Aleksey waves awkwardly as Abigail, with a final glance over her shoulder, fades into the crowd.
You are not coming to family dinner.
Benjamin stares after Abigail.
That's your sister?
Aleksey looks around, eyes the crowd.
Can we talk somewhere private?
Interior hallway, day. Aleksey and Benjamin tuck themselves into an empty hallway outside the main terminal, away from the crowd.
Your family lives on the colony?
Aleksey shoves food in her mouth.
Does that make you a traitor or a rebellious child?
Aleksey snarls.
I was born on Earth. They left, not me. My parents moved us up here when I was 5, and I didn't have a choice.
How did you end up back on Earth?
I moved back when I was in high school, and I never wanted to leave, so I didn't.
Benjamin stares at her as it clicks.
Your father is William Amhail.
Aleksey winces, takes a bite. Benjamin grabs for her food, but Aleksey ducks it out of his reach just in time.
Does your family know?
You think I'm stupid? They have no idea.
You've been lying to your family. For how long?
Is this really important?
Your father is a diplomat on the negotiating team for the ceasefire.
Aleksey takes another bite.
Stop eating. We're having a conversation.
Aleksey chews, takes another bite, just to spite him.
What's wrong? You never lied to your family?
No.
Liar. It's normal.
The only family I have is my sister. She's Adelaide's first officer. I haven't been able to reach her since before the beacon went out.
A heavy silence falls.
We're a family up here. Everyone works together and pitches in, takes care of one another.
Aleksey, awkward.
Yes. I'm aware it's a socialist state.
Benjamin, defensive.
Hey, it's not a bad thing.
Anytime anyone gets a participation trophy based on someone else's work, it's a bad thing.
My sister and I wouldn't have survived otherwise. We'd have starved on the streets if the people on this colony hadn't taken us in.
They lapse into an angry silence.
We could search the area where the beacon was last located.
Benjamin shifts, surprised.
I haven't been cleared to fly again yet. I can't go out and look for her.
Well, that's an easy fix.
Benjamin has no idea what she's talking about.
I'll go.
Interior hallway, day. Aleksey leads Benjamin down the same hallway Torque brought her.
The location didn't look far.
It wasn't. 8-10 hours for a freighter. I'm assuming you can go faster.
We're probably on par with your fighters. What's your max speed again?
Same as yours.
They reach the glass doors. Benjamin swipes his card. The doors slide open.
You can walk this hallway if you want, but you're not coming aboard.
I'm lead for this investigation. Anyone you ask will tell you. You can't launch without my approval.
On the colony? Sure. But as soon as I step through the door, I'm not on the colony anymore, and you don't have a say in anything.
They stare one another down. Benjamin's worry for his sister overrides everything.
You can send the feed to the port or operate on their way so I can watch.
Aleksey's sympathetic, but it doesn't change anything.
No way. Even if I was willing to do that, and I'm not, it would never be approved on my end.
Benjamin struggles.
If our positions were reversed, you would never do it either.
Benjamin takes a deep breath.
Okay. How long do you think it'll take?
A couple hours.
I'll wait here.
Aleksey rolls her eyes.
Go get a cup of coffee or something. I'll find you as soon as I finish.
Benjamin hesitates.
All right. As soon as you finish.
Aleksey looks him dead in the eye.
I promise.
The door slides open. Aleksey steps through.
Wait, how will you find me?
Aleksey just waves over her shoulder as the door slides closed. Interior, Enola Gay 3 locker room, day. Aleksey, now in her red flight suit, tosses her clothes into her locker, hangs her jacket on a hook on the door. She grabs her helmet and heads out. The PLF flyer sticks out of her jacket pocket. Interior, Aleksey's fighter, day. Aleksey sits in the cockpit of her fighter, the visor of her helmet up as she runs through her pre-flight checklist. New pictures of her family and friends are stuck around the red button on the overhead console. Torque sticks his head into the cockpit, headset around his neck.
Anything on pre-flight?
Nope, looks good.
Watch the thrust. I tweaked it for a better response time.
Jesus, Torque. It already responds in milliseconds.
Torque winks.
You can always go faster.
Until something stops you.
They fist bump. Torque ducks out, closes the cockpit. Aleksey relaxes into her seat, lowers her visor. She rubs her shoulder. Lights flash outside the cockpit.
30 seconds to launch. All crew members to stations. 30 seconds to launch.
The sound of huge metal doors sliding open. Aleksey's cockpit comes alive. The lights flash red, yellow, red, then green.
Flight deck, Bloodstar. Ready for launch. Initiate free fall.
A deafening whoosh. Aleksey's fighter is violently launched downward. Exterior, asteroid belt, day. An asteroid belt stretches as far as the eye can see. Colony Delta rotates behind the Enola Gay. 3 Earth fighters launch from the main deck. Aleksey's fighter launches from under the ship in a flash of light. It looks like a shooting star as it streaks towards the other 3.
Command, log us off.
We'll keep the lanterns burning.
Aleksey takes the lead as they enter the asteroid belt.
Line up, guys. We'll set up a grid search.
What are we looking for? A freighter?
How'd they lose an entire bloody ship?
The fighters fall into a line, dodging around asteroids.
The same way they lost Gibraltar. They weren't paying attention.
Interior, Colonial Port Dispatch Center, day. Benjamin strides into the port's dispatch center. Dozens of dispatchers with headsets and tablets manage the bustling traffic coming in and out of the port. Benjamin stops to study a 3D map of the port and ships currently docked. He finds the Enola Gay 3, watches 4 blips leave it and head into the asteroid belt.
Excuse me, Captain Thomas?
Benjamin turns. A dispatcher, a young woman with her headset around her neck. She smiles bashfully, looks at Benjamin with something akin to hero worship.
Yes?
Sorry to bother you. I recognize you, and, well, I wanted to say thank you for your service. It's an honor to meet you.
She blushes, bats her eyelashes. Benjamin shifts, uncomfortable.
Thank you.
Did you need help with something?
Yes, I need you to hail a ship, the Adelaide.
Exterior, Argo, day. The Argo is hidden in the shadow of a huge asteroid, almost invisible to the naked eye. Interior, Argo, continuous. The crew watches 2 of the Earth fighters maneuver through the asteroids. Pat stands next to the helmsman.
Fusion powered. We should take them out now.
Fusion means spacey. They would never send just 2.
As they watch, the 3rd Earth fighter appears from behind a small asteroid.
Charleston and his flight are out there. Shouldn't we warn them?
Any radio contact could give away their position.
What are they doing out there?
Looking for the Adelaide.
They look at her in surprise.
Already?
Hammond must have ordered an investigation.
Pat smiles.
She's not a complete fool.
Doesn't matter now.
Interior, Colonial Port Dispatch, day. Benjamin watches the 4 blips reappear on the map and return to the Enola Gay. He glances at his watch. The dispatcher joins him.
I'm sorry for the delay, Captain Thomas. We tried to hail the Adelaide, but we haven't reached a response.
Benjamin's hope begins to wane.
Try again.
She shifts awkwardly, surprised.
Of course.
She turns to go. Benjamin sighs.
Wait. You keep a record of all transmissions, correct?
Oh, yes, we do.
Can you find the last time the Adelaide transmitted?
She balks, thinking about it. She taps on her tablet.
Let me see. We registered a comm with the Adelaide yesterday.
Exterior, asteroid belt, continuous. The Earth fighters systematically search the area.
I don't see anything but giant fucking rocks.
Put your glasses on.
Spread out. The Adelaide's last known position was in this sector.
Aleksey's fighter moves farther out than the others, out of sight of the Argo.
Command, Bloodstar.
Bloodstar, command, go ahead.
Any life signs besides us?
Negative. We read 4, all spacey. There's something in the belt mucking up her readings, though.
Interior, Aleksey's fighter continuous. Aleksey glances at the radar in her cockpit. It sweeps continuously, but the readings are dulled, blurry.
I can't get a clear reading. Some kind of metallic cloud. It's confusing the radar.
Exterior, asteroid belt continuous. The 3 Earth fighters turn to continue their sweep. 6 PLF fighters drop out of the shadows, led by Axel's fighter. They fall on the Earth fighters.
Shit. Enemy fighters on the field.
Enemy fighters on the field. Watch your wings.
The PLF fighters open fire. The Earth fighters break from formation, execute defensive maneuvers.
En route.
They look like old colonial fighters. Watch your right.
The Earth fighter rolls out of the way of a missile.
There's 2 more coming around to the 9.
2 Earth fighters dodge around an asteroid and barely avoid a wave of missile fire.
Hard left.
I'm with you. Bloodstar, where are you?
Axel's fighter and 3 other PLF fighters close in on the 2 Earth fighters.
Right here.
Interior, Argo continuous.
We have them. Our boys will wipe them out.
Aleksey's fighter dives over a large asteroid, lines up with the PLF fighters, opens fire, and destroys 2. One of the crew nearly falls out of his chair in surprise.
Oh my god. That's Nova.
Fear and awe leave the crew speechless.
Get on the radio. Warn Charleston.
Exterior, asteroid belt continuous. Aleksey's fighter falls in on Axel and the other PLF fighter.
Convoy. Break right.
The 2 Earth fighters immediately execute sharp right turns. The PLF fighters turn to follow. Aleksey opens fire, clips Axel's fighter in the wing and engine, and destroys the other. Axel's fighter veers away, disappears around another asteroid.
When you guys get a second, I've got 2 more left over here.
We're coming around your 6.
Aleksey's fighter leads 2 Earth fighters around the asteroid. The Earth fighters unite, turn on the 2 PLF fighters. The PLF fighters go down quickly under their combined firepower.
Anyone see where the last fighter went?
It dropped off before we came around the asteroid. He's done for. His engine was gone.
He'll run out of oxygen before he gets out of the belt.
Interior, Enola Gay flight deck, day. The 3 Earth fighters land, quickly taxi out of the way. Aleksey's fighter lands lightly on the deck. The flight deck doors slide closed. Crew members and engineers swarm the fighters, help the pilots climb out. Backslapping and congratulations. They celebrate whenever someone comes back alive as the pilots pull off their helmets and start to gulp down water. Aleksey climbs out of her fighter and slips away. Interior, Hall of Honor continuous. Aleksey enters the Hall of Honor. One wall is solid, the other a long expanse of glass looking out into space. The wall is covered in pictures of loved ones lost. Small trinkets and personal items are arranged on the floor, some covered in dust, others brand new. Aleksey lets her fingers trail over the pictures as she walks. She stops where 2 timers with bright red numbers are mounted among the pictures. Aleksey looks at them, haunted, turns away to press her forehead against the glass and breathes deep. The glass fogs. Torque joins her. The sleeves of his flight suit tied around his waist. There are faded pilot wings on the pocket of his t-shirt.
It's so fucking cold up here. I miss the sun. The dirt.
Torque presses his shoulder to hers.
We all do. Eventually we'll go home, one way or another.
Aleksey presses her cheek to the glass.
You know, back when we were fighting, really fighting, Baden 2 and Cosmos, I was so cold. I thought I'd never be warm again.
We had to turn the base heat of the ship up because so many were getting sick. I get the chills if I stand still too long.
He leans against the glass with her.
Flair tried to turn the heat on the flight deck up to 100 the other day. When I told her no, she spent the entire day waddling around in her marshmallow suit.
Aleksey laughs, presses her forehead to the glass, and closes her eyes.
They were colonial fighters, the models they used to use years ago. His sister's dead. That cloud on the radar. Remember what happened to the Lincoln?
Yeah, when they destroyed it, it left a metal signature scattered across the entire area.
That was all that was left. It was the only way we even knew what had happened to them.
That's not proof, Aleksey. The Lincoln is still listed as MIA. Besides, would he even believe you that it was his own side?
Aleksey is silent.
I'm not going to tell him. For all we know, they already know what happened and they're hiding it.
You think he knew his own people were planning to kill his sister? And he just let it happen? That's not right.
Aleksey gathers herself, straightens.
It doesn't have to be. War's not right or wrong. It's just war. In the end, all that matters is who's left when the dust clears. He was different.
Torque's surprised.
You did a read on him?
Aleksey nods.
You're gonna have to report that. And the engagement.
Aleksey rolls her eyes.
They fired first. That's my report.
She heads for the door.
What about the expenditure forms? Distro wants accountability of every round.
He's only half joking. Aleksey flips him off over her shoulder. Exterior asteroid belt day. Axel's fighter limps through the belt. One of its engines has been torn away. It flies tilted to one side, a thin trail of leaking fuel in its wake. Interior Argo flight deck day. Axel's fighter lands hard on the flight deck, slides across the floor in a wave of sparks and a screech of metal on metal. A crew turns fire extinguishers on the wreck. Others pry off the cockpit cover and pull out Axel. A female medic rushes over as they prop him up against a crate. Axel shoves them all away, yanks off his helmet, and slams it on the ground so hard it cracks. He's beyond angry. Blood drips down his face from a cut on his forehead.
Back off!
Do not argue with me.
The medic, Charity, late 20s. She might be pretty, but she's a professional. No one tells her how to do her job. Pat strides onto the flight deck.
You let Nova surprise me!
The Enola Gay's never been on our list of suspected Nova units.
It's the goddamn flagship of Earth's first fleet!
Charity peels away the top half of his flight suit. Red welts from his safety harness crisscross his chest. His shoulder is swollen, starts to bruise.
And it is considered a war crime in the colonies to launch a Nova unit. It's bold of Earth to put it on a flagship.
Since when does Earth care about our laws?
You should consider yourself lucky. You're the only one who survived.
Axel snarls at him.
They were incompetent and they paid the price.
The crewman backs down with a disgruntled look. He's too afraid to fight with Axel.
You're done flying for a few weeks.
The hell I am!
She's right. Rest. We thought Nova was hours away, but with it this close, we will have to recalculate.
She's not happy about it, but she's too practical to do anything else.
They will be distracted with the Adelaide. If anything, it should buy us more time to put the pieces in place. A few hints in the right ears, and they'll start blaming one another. It may even benefit us.
Axel tries to stand, but Charity pushes him back down.
I want first shot. I'll deal with Nova.
You cannot deal with Nova. You run or you get turned to stardust.
We are not here to blaze brightly once and then die out. We are here to burn, Axel, until the whole of the human race understands. We are here to save them, and to do so, we must destroy Earth. And the Enola Gay is the first step.
Interior, Colony Delta Bar, night. Abigail steps into the crowded bar. Screens are mounted on all the walls, digital versions of every sport imaginable. She pushes her way through the happy hour crowd and finds Maximilian Dante, the same man from the news report at the port, playing digital darts.
Max!
He grins, pauses his game.
Sorry I'm late.
No worries. Axel's not here yet either.
Relieved, Abigail makes sure her clothes are straight, checks her perfect makeup with her compact. Maximilian watches, amused.
I hope he makes it.
He'll be here, Abby. He promised.
I want him to have a good night. You know what tomorrow is.
Maximilian winces.
Concord.
He lost his parents when Earth double-crossed us during the negotiations.
No one really knows what really happened there, Abby. We were kids. Even Axel was never told.
Axel, the PLF pilot, enters the bar, one arm in a sling. He pauses to look around. Abigail waves enthusiastically, and Axel makes his way over.
Are you ever gonna ask him out?
Abigail jerks around in horror. Maximilian grins, mimes, locking his lips. Axel joins them. Maximilian immediately zeroes in on his shoulder.
You made it.
What happened to you?
Maximilian examines the sling. Axel brushes him off.
Accident at work. Where's my brew?
He's joking to get Maximilian away from his shoulder. Maximilian frowns, motions to a table with 3 beers.
So what do you guys want to do?
Darts.
Abigail huffs.
Or we could talk. I have news.
Maximilian and Axel pretend to be annoyed, but they join Abigail around the table.
All right, out with it, Abby.
Abigail can barely contain her excitement.
My sister is here.
They stare at her.
You have a sister?
Maximilian kicks him under the table. Axel grimaces. Abigail's face falls, hurt.
Sorry, it's been a long time since she's visited, right?
Abigail nods.
Years. I didn't even know she was coming. She was trying to surprise us.
I bet your parents are happy.
They don't know yet. I just bumped into her at the port. She was with Captain Thomas.
Maximilian straightens.
Captain Thomas? He retired.
Abigail shrugs, unconcerned.
I invited them to family dinner tomorrow, and I want both of you to come too.
Axel looks hesitant.
But it's family dinner. We're not family.
Maximilian looks at Axel with fond exasperation.
Don't be silly.
Abigail reaches across the table, squeezes Axel's hand.
We've been friends since middle school. We've been through everything together. Of course we're family. I want you to meet her. I think she's about to come home for good.
Nothing can quash Abigail's delight at the idea.
I thought she lived on Earth.
She does, but now that the ceasefire is official, she can come home.
Does she want to?
Abigail looks at him, not a doubt in her mind.
Of course. No one wants to live on Earth. All that disease and uncontrollable weather. They still have the common cold down there.
Interior computer booth, day. It's a tiny private comm booth. It barely fits a comm console and chair. Benjamin rubs his eyes, tired as the recording just drones on. Then,
Did an asteroid break up?
Benjamin's head snaps up.
There are 5 signals. Wait, they changed direction.
Benjamin leans forward, absorbed.
That is not a colonial fast mover.
It's hailing us.
The recording falls silent. Interior Argo interrogation room, night. Dave, beaten and bloody and secured to a chair in front of a table, the diplomatic pouch lays in the center of the table unopened. The door slides open and Pat enters. Dave tries to blink the blood out of his eyes.
Tell me the access code, David.
Go to hell.
Fade out.